Imagine this. A short kid growing up in the poor neighborhoods of Argentina. No money inside the house, no hope on the streets. And nobody believes he will one day become one of the greatest footballers in the world. But by the end of this video, you won't just understand how Diego Maradona became a legend. You'll see how a human being turned poverty, pressure, and chaos into becoming the god of the World Cup. But here's the strange part. Whenever that kid touched a football, everyone said the same thing. This is not normal. And this is exactly where Diego Maradona's story begins. Today, people remember him as the god of the World Cup. But most people don't even know where the story truly started, because Maradona's childhood was not filled with luxury. There were days without electricity, days when finding food was difficult. And football was more than fun for him. It was an escape route. Look, here's what people don't understand. Some footballers love football. Maradona held onto football to survive, because whenever the ball touched his feet, the world suddenly changed. It felt like the poor neighborhoods disappeared, like all problems stopped for a few seconds. And honestly, I don't think people were connected to Maradona only because of his talent. It was because he was fearless on the field. Because despite being short, he challenged everyone. Stronger opponents, bigger teams, and sometimes even the entire system itself. But this is where the story starts becoming bigger. Because that boy was no longer becoming just a footballer. He was becoming the hope of an entire country. And here's the interesting part. Even at a young age, Diego Maradona never acted like an ordinary person. Because when he stepped onto the field, he didn't just want to play well. He wanted to destroy everyone. Look, brother, some footballers are talented, but inside Maradona there was something else. There was chaos. Whenever the ball touched his feet, the game became uncontrollable. Opponents could not predict what he would do. Because Maradona played football with instinct, not rules. And honestly, I think that is exactly what made him so special. Because people were not just watching goals, they were watching a character. But this is also where the dark side begins. Because the faster the world lifts you up, the more impatient it becomes to watch your fall. And Maradona realized this very early. In Argentina, people no longer looked at him like a footballer. He had become something bigger than a star, a hope, a hero, maybe even a living legend. But imagine this. You place the dreams of an entire country onto one man's shoulders. That pressure destroys most people. And this is where Maradona's story becomes dangerous. Because he was no longer just winning matches. He was carrying the soul of an entire country. And then 1986 arrives, maybe the greatest World Cup performance football has ever seen. Look, brother, people still talk about that tournament today, because in that World Cup, Maradona wasn't just a captain. It felt like he owned the game itself. And here's the strangest part. Argentina's squad wasn't perfect on paper, but whenever Maradona stepped onto the field, the team transformed into something else. It felt like everyone played with his energy. But then the England match arrives, and this is exactly where football history changes forever. Because that match was no longer just football. The shadow of the war between Argentina and England still lived inside people's minds, and Maradona knew it. First comes the hand of God goal. The world goes crazy. People still debate whether that goal was cheating or genius. But honestly, the truly terrifying moment comes a few minutes later, because Maradona takes the ball at midfield and dribbles past the entire England team alone. It feels like the game escapes reality itself. Look, people call it just a goal, but honestly, I think that was the moment football became art. And this is exactly where Maradona stopped being just a great footballer and became a myth. But here's the problem, brother. When the world starts seeing you like a god, eventually it forgets that you are still human. And this is exactly where the dark side of the story begins, because Diego Maradona was no longer just a footballer. He was the pride of a country, a symbol, maybe even a living god. But honestly, brother, nobody can carry this kind of pressure forever, because people no longer wanted just football from Maradona. They expected miracles. And here's the problem. The higher the world lifts you, the more impatient it becomes to watch your fall. Look, people saw the goals he scored, but they never saw the weight he carried at night. The fame grew, the money grew, the chaos grew, and little by little, Maradona started getting lost inside his own legend. Drug scandals, constant controversy, newspapers, pressure. The man who once looked like the freest footballer in the world now seemed trapped inside his own life. But here's the interesting part. People still couldn't stop watching him, even while he was falling, because Maradona was never perfect. He was real. He had flaws, he had anger, he had sides he couldn't control. And maybe that is exactly what made him unforgettable. Because people don't remember perfect people, they remember real characters. And at the end of the day, people talked about how many goals Diego Maradona scored. But honestly, the real story was never just about football, because Maradona's story was much bigger than a football story. This was the story of a boy who came from a poor neighborhood and made the entire world admire him. Look, brother, some footballers win trophies. Others become engraved into the memory of an entire generation. Maradona belonged to the second group, because whenever he stepped onto the field, people were not just watching a match. They were watching an explosion. They were watching chaos. They were watching the thin line between genius and madness. And honestly, maybe no football player in history ever felt as real to people as Maradona did, because he was not perfect. He made mistakes. He fell. He got lost. But despite everything, people never stopped loving him. Because sometimes people don't remember perfect heroes. They remember broken legends more. And that is why people still call him the God of the World Cup today. Because in 1986, Maradona didn't just win the trophy. He wrote one of the most unforgettable stories in football history. And maybe the craziest part is this, brother. The world still has not seen another player like him. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.